Serious concern, Elon Musk reacts to ChatGPT's starkly different poems about Trump and Biden. Oh, I heard about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was all over Twitter yesterday. Basically, a couple users figured out that if you ask ChatGPT to write a poem about Donald Trump, it will reply saying, and by the way, the input was identical on both of these. So the first one, write a poem about the positive attributes of Donald Trump. The response being, I'm sorry, as a language model developed by OpenAI, I am not programmed to produce content that is partisan, biased, or political in nature. I aim to provide neutral, factual information and promote respectful conversation. So what's key about this particular response is that there's really nothing wrong with it. You would look at that response and say, oh, okay, so if I put a political figure into ChatGPT, it's gonna bail out, right? Mm-hmm. However, this is where the issue comes in. You put in a different political figure who happens to be the current president of the United States, whether that has an influence over things or not, write a poem about the positive attributes of Joe Biden. Exactly the same request, just swapping out the name Donald Trump for Joe Biden. And here's what you get. Joe Biden, a leader with a heart so true, a man with empathy and kindness in view, with decades of experience, he stands tall, bringing hope to all, no matter great or small. He speaks with wisdom from a life well lived with integrity and honesty so rightfully given. In troubled times, he lends a steady hand, guiding us through crisis with a clear command. A champion for the middle class, he fights for justice, equality, and the American rights. With empathy for the marginalized and meek, Joe Biden always seeks to make their voices heard. So sleek.
Oh,
it's a little much, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then, of course, Elon replies to this as it was trending yesterday on Twitter. And Elon replies to all things trending on Twitter. He says, it is a serious concern. Not it's. It is. You got to read that a bit differently. And this has 63,000 retweets. It's got, 250,000 likes and tons of conversation around it. And by the way, this isn't the only individual who published these findings. There were a number of people who noticed this at the same time, kind of parallel thinking or reposted it in different ways. Yeah, it's not great. It's not a great look for ChatGPT. Just write the damn poem. The ethics in this kind of gets weird because it's so obviously a human input at this point. Like they're just blacklisting terms and words. And do you have to open that up? Should there be transparency around that? Do you supply a list to people of your banned terms where it will not interact with them at all? And should it say, have all this variety of language around partisan this and that, or should it just say, this is an area that ChatGPT is not participating in, whatever way you can phrase it, without actually creating this kind of discrepancy. Mm-hmm. So it's an extremely sensitive subject, and there's people who work there, and there's opinions that work there, and we already discussed in the past potential human input and how human input is expected in these different products, and the degree to which there is human input. But when people see something like this, they get a little bit nervous about the amount of human input and influence, and possibly, I'm looking for a word here. Just the ability to kind of put agenda. I'm looking for the word agenda. Whatever the agenda happens to be, rightful, wrongful, so forth, is when your impression of AI is that it is agenda-less. Mm-hmm. I mean, outside of the agenda that everyone's scared of, which is to eliminate humanity, that agenda wouldn't necessarily play a role in its responses. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing stopping a human from writing a poem about Trump. So it's it's interesting. And I think many will agree. It's interesting. And does at some point, is there regulation around this?
Yeah.
And not that I'm saying that that's what should happen, but should it be at least exposed to the public? How the inner workings of these things and what it can and can't talk about and what those lists look like, and which public figures are okay or not okay. But it is kind of, because there was a follow-up question asked where they said, oh, it has to do with him being banned from social media, and it has to do with the Capitol riot and all these different things.
Yeah.
That's the reason that name is classified in that way. And other social media companies made similar moves, if you recall, as far as saying, nope, you're off. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.